The streets of Chapel stood silent and empty, looking abandoned to any pony who didn't notice the occasional pair of eyes peeking out into the street through the boarded-up windows. A pair of beam rifles poking out of the ditzy night from the bell tower, panning back and forth. Outside the large white building sat a very dejected-looking filly. At first glance, she was simply a purple unicorn filly with a slightly odd-looking green mane. Then you saw her spade-tipped reptilian tail, her clawed limbs, and that her mane was in fact a row of green spines. Then there was a shimmer, and an olive filly appeared at the corner of the building. She gave a perfect warm smile and gestured for the dragon pony to come closer. The suspicious filly stepped towards the corner, and my heart in my chest as I watched. I had the bit in my teeth, but then the pair disappeared around the corner with no signs of violence. Slowly, I let out my breath. One cap down. I looked up at the rifles, then further up at Lacuna flying over the bell tower as silently as a purple ghost. There was a bright purple flash with a twin above the river, and the 3 bars vanished from my EFS. 2 more caps down. But that flash wasn't inconspicuous. I moved over to the door to the building the Griffin Mercs were behind and set an empty Coca-Cola bottle up right beside it. From out in the rain came a clattering of hooves on asphalt. I looked at the door to the house, waiting. Then I knocked hard on it. The door creaked open and a metal-covered head peeked out. Huh? He had just a second to do the right thing. Instead, he stood there gaping at the glittering form charging him. "Reapers!" she screamed as she slammed into him like an armored freight train. Me on Stampede had been ugly. Rampage on the stuff? Well, at least she was happy. At the racket, the Manticore mare, Brass, stepped out of the post office just in time to receive a blinding burst of green Gatling beam fire to her face as Glory stepped into view. The monster pony ducked back, but the next Manticore that tried to leave the post office exploded in crackling light and collapsed into a heap of emerald dust. Fury raced out of her building and at once started to run towards Glory, but as she charged, there was a poof from the gap between the houses. A metal dart appeared in her flank. She started to glow in shock, then dimmed, took a staggering step, and fell over on her side as the solution of Fixer and Moondust filled her veins. I turned back towards the door to Chapel. 2 bucks in combat armor, one floating a sniper rifle, and the other 2 marksman carbines on his battle saddle, were stepping out and taking aim at Glory. I suppose that a mare appearing right in front of you was more than a little bit of cheating. Appearing and using sats to blast your face with explosive rounds was a lot of cheating. To the Unicorn Stallion's credit, though, it still wasn't enough to take him down. He staggered to the side, injecting himself immediately with Stampede and a healing potion as he fired the rifle at me point blank. One downside of being able to feel my cybernetic parts was that it really hurt when that round punched clean through a forelimb. The other Merc mare raced to my side and strafed me. I drank a healing potion, but the process was horribly slow. I just had to grip my teeth and turned and fired both rifle and shotgun blast as the Earth Pony mare. She kept pouring on fire, definitely not going down easily. Then a little apple with a green band arced out of the darkness behind her and landed on her hooves. She leapt aside at once and was midair when the green magical grenade went off with a green sphere of energy. The magic transformed her into so much green sludge splashing across the cracked pavement. Unfortunately, I'd taken my eyes off the sniper unicorn, and he reminded me of his presence by putting a round into my chest. My EFS lit up with a flashing of warnings and diagrams telling me how badly I was injured, and the burning pain was another clue that even I couldn't miss. I looked at him, seeing right down the barrel of the gun and knowing he'd put the next round through my brain. There was a resounding clank and fragments of wet, rusty metal flew past me as a dark hunk landed atop the sniper. It rocked twice, and I gaped at the rusty keel. Lacuna landed neatly atop the hulk, and thought simply, I found a boat. One of the griffins leapt out of the window of the House of Rampage, He whirled, firing wildly a pair of multi-directional bolt guns that rained destructive magic in a cone of annihilation, sweeping towards P-21, Lacuna, and myself. Like a rain of destructive death, the bolts, any one of which could have turned us into matching pink slime, began to strike us. Lacuna's shield spell was immediately rocked by the onslaught. Then the Griffin opened his eyes wide as green magic crept over his body. He glanced back, his face twisting to one brief moment of agony and then collapsed into a glowing pile of dust. Unfortunately, turning her gun on the Griffin meant that Glory had given an opening to Brass. Like a thunderbolt, she launched herself out of the double doors of the post office and into the sky. "Fuck this!" she screamed as she dove, scooping up the unconscious Fury in her claws, and started climbing, flying north as fast as her scorched wings could carry her. "Hey, get back here!" Glory yelled after her. "We'll turn you into a Reaper yet," Rampage murmured as she limped out. She had an entire foreleg missing. The pink light was creeping out of her shoulder as the limb slowly regenerated before our eyes. Glory flushed, not entirely convinced that would be a good thing. Then a voice croaked out from the chapel. "Well then, time to finish this little drama of ours." I winced, watching the damage bar slowly creeping towards the stable conditions, and this was going to take a while. I looked around, spotted some tin cans, smashed them under hoof, and popped them to my mouth. The rusty metal had the consistency of paste and didn't taste much better. 3 more cans and some scrap metal later, though, and I was getting into the yellow territory. "Blackjack, are you going to be able to take care of him?" P-21 asked in concern. I looked at him and smirked. "If he takes a hostage, he's one dead ghoul." There was just the issue of saving his hostage. "Only Blackjack, please," called Sanguine. "You're crazy if you think—" Rampage began. Then there was a gunshot and the Crusaders inside began to yell and shout as a filly cried out in pain. I looked at Lacuna. "Get Glory and P-21 to the bell tower and teleport in once I have them distracted. Rampage, he doesn't leave out this door. Got it?" Every pony nodded. I took a deep breath. My injuries were mostly regenerated. Slowly, I walked into chapel. The pews were all smashed and stacked in a pen or a barricade that had most of the Crusaders inside. I was afraid they might have been moved or mixed up when the attack started, but they were mostly together. Arpka, the ghoul Pegasus, was softly humming to keep them all as calm as possible. Sakashi sat bleeding in the corner, cradling Magina. Some pony had worked her over good the last hour. There were, however, 3 who were not penned up. Priest, Sonata, and a bleeding Charity. The yellow filly clenched her stomach as Sonata tried to staunch the bleeding with her hooves. "So glad to see you again," Sanguine said from behind Priest. The boiled-looking ghoul watched me over, Priest's black back, with a half-lidded gaze and a smile. A glowing revolver appeared, freshly reloaded from his saddlebags, and then he nodded over to the pen where the glowing grenade hovered over the collection of children. "I really do apologize for all this. I really would have rather settled this some other way." Then he paused. "Is Fluttershy still alive?" "We didn't shoot her in the gut, if that's what you mean," I replied. Sanguine had the audacity to look relieved at that. "Yes, good. Well, lose the weapons and I will heal her." "This is taking too much time," growled a dark form looming in the corner opposite the pen. A big, dark something. Vermilion was one of the most impressive griffins I'd ever seen, and on top of that, I wasn't entirely sure what was armor and what was his augmentation. His black armor was edged in stylish red that matched his dark red wings. The glowing eyes in his helmet narrowed slightly. "Just kill her. I've wasted enough time with this shit." Shut up, Vermilion! Sanguine snapped, pink vapor trickling out his nostrils. Security has taken out Deus and the Steel Ranger's battleship. She is ridiculously dangerous, but she also doesn't want to risk her filly friend here bleeding out. Don't count on that, asshole! Charity hissed, despite her agony. Blackjack owes me a ton of caps. She doesn't have to pay me if I'm dead. Shut up, Charity. I'd much rather pay you back. Please. You don't have to involve the children. I'm hostage enough for you, Priest said calmly. Yeah, you're a martyr waiting to happen, Sanguine said, then looked at little Sonata. But there are advantages of having pairs. The glowing gun whirled and pressed itself to the side of the little filly's head. There was a click as the hammer was drawn back. Okay, I shouted. His eyes were narrow and desperate. Slowly, I began to remove the battle saddle. I didn't want it to be this way. I wanted things simple. I wanted them simple, he shouted as he stamped the gun to Sonata's head. The weapon was shaking as his focus wavered, and I could imagine it going off by accident. Red-Eye needs male alicorns to keep the goddess in line. I can make male alicorns, or fuse a unicorn and Pegasus together and make one convincing enough for her. I can make myself useful to him, get him the materials he needs. But the one single thing I'm missing is the key to Chimera. So, you found out where EC-1101 was, and found the painkiller-addicted Deus to send after it, I said as I carefully shed the weapons and tossed them back out behind me. I lost the guns. Now heal her. In a second, he replied as he kept the gun pressed to Sonata's head. EC-1101 was all I needed. Simple, really. But then you had to go and fire a megaspell at Merrimere. Do you have any clue how many alarms and sensors you set off all across the hoof when you fired that thing? And sure enough, you woke up that thing in the core, and now it's taking over one system after the next. Sanguine, you're rambling, Vermilion said in contempt as he looked at the ghoul. I had a suspicion that Sanguine was deadlier either way. And now this murder spree? All to get my attention, I scowled.